As books in a library bring wisdom to our lives, so too in Lessons Learned, I try to share with you not only what a specific lesson is of wisdom, but from whom I've learned it. SuperBetty, or Bernadette O'Brien, at over 87 years young, has shared with me and taught me over 5 lessons learned. Let's take a look at yet another one. Betty says you can't put your head on someone else's shoulders, and I have since added to that. You can't put your heart into someone else's chest. Back to head. When I talk to Betty about love and acceptance, and she is one of the most loving and accepting people I know, of all races, of all nationalities, of all orientations, of all genders, she says, I can just get through my life worrying about what I have to do for today. I don't have time to even judge other people. And I love that approach. And when I've talked to her about trying to impose my will on the world, whether it be with an employee, with an expectation or a requirement, better said, or with a friend, or with someone who's disappointed me, or with someone who doesn't define love the way I do, Betty ultimately, in her explanation of you can't put your head on someone else's shoulders, sure, could be taken as just live and let live and just accept. But actually, her words are a little bit more profound than that. We actually have to set ourselves up for understanding definitions. Definitions of what, you ask? Definitions of any important thing we hold in our heart. Love, agreements, work, ethics, trust, truth, beauty, poetry. Not all of us will define those things the same. And so when we find our way to react around, perhaps, for example, love in a relationship, and we find, well, you hurt my feelings, or you really disappointed me when you, or you don't make me feel special when you, or I wish you would, or why do you always? Well, all the rest of those sentences may not be someone's intention to love or not love, but just different definitions. Parenthetically, I add, if you haven't read The Love Languages, I really recommend you read it. End of parentheses. So I've taken Betty's idea about how we think about things and how we define love and trust and all those important concepts around our planet to our heart. You can't put your heart into someone else's chest. So how you are going to react and define and relate to love and approval and acceptance and understanding really is just about you. And the other person has all of that stuff going on. When we actually communicate and find ourselves able to react to and relate to the same level, there's mutual interest or trust or love or infatuation or just something physical that's temporary, attraction. But we can't get through the expectation that everyone is going to accept love based on our definition of love. So what's in our heart may not be what's in someone else's heart, and certainly not head of defining the way we see our world. So I think the important thing, whether we're putting our head on someone else's head or our heart into someone else's chest, we actually have to give up that ability and celebrate our differences and learn from others. Specifically, personally, I've learned more about love by how other people define love than by trying to impose my definition of love and say, well, when it's the one, this person will act XYZ or believe XYZ or react XYZ because that's my definition of love. Well, thanks, Betty, for helping me realize that you can't put, nor should we try to put, our heart into someone else's chest or our mind into someone else's head, because that's setting ourselves up for disappointment. And perhaps we're all meant to learn from each other in different ways by having definitions that are different and not the same of what's in our heart and what's in our head. Speaking of heart, with love in my heart and a commitment to spread wellness without walls, I'm Lawrence, expressing my gratitude to you for allowing me to share my lessons learned thus far. And I conclude by asking, what are some ways in your life when you actually could find freedom from relinquishing the task that you try to impose by putting your heart into someone else's chest and your head on someone else's shoulders. Because then, ultimately, we have the ability to learn through freedom.